Good afternoon, and we're so glad to be with you, and thank you for the opportunity for Jan and myself to be here. Jan and I have known each other a long time, worked a lot together, and it's another pleasure to be with him. We want to talk to you about another dimension of higher education, which is accreditation, particularly AACSB accreditation, and its role and possible role in the work of state boards as you qualify candidates to sit for the CPA exam. And of course, we can get this, there we go, and we'll move to here. Is it the right one? I'm maybe not pointing at the right computer. There we go. Our focus is simply this, that we believe that AACSB accreditation can be an important assistance to state boards in qualifying candidates, and we'll talk why about that and try to provide some information. AACSB, the letters stand for the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business International, and to prove that, we've documented over 16,000 institutions in the world give at least a bachelor's degree in business, 716 whole AACSB Business School accreditation, that's less than 5%, and only 181 whole business and accounting accreditation, which is less than 2%. In the States, we've been around, just like the AAA, in 2016, we will celebrate our 100th birthday as well, being founded by a group of 14 leading institutions in 1916. So we are delighted to be in this set and involved in higher education and business for a very long time. Today, there are, again, 716 schools globally in 48 countries and territories that have business accreditation. There are 181 institutions holding business and accounting accreditation in 8 countries around the world. Our focus in our talk today is really talk a little bit about the types of accreditation, something about AACSB and its accreditation standards, which is relevant to the work, particularly of the work of state boards as it relates to the educational background of students. We'll share with you, and you may have seen some of this already, but more data on CPA exam data with regard to candidates and results of that data linked to AACSB accreditation status, and some information about the status of recognition of AACSB throughout the state board network. And then we'll have some time kind of summarize that and come back and hopefully as well have time for questions as we move forward. Well, what is accreditation? Too far. Well, we'll get it to go back.
That's it. That's the right button, the one on the left.
Maybe.
There you go.
Okay. One more time. My apologies. The accreditation process, as it's conducted largely in the United States, is non-governmental by all the organizations, though you would argue that there are accreditation systems and recognition processes conducted by state and federal governments and even local governments. But the accreditation process, as we know it, is a non-governmental activity. It's mission-driven, almost in all cases. In other words, tied to the mission of a particular institution, unit, or area under review. It's a quality assurance process. It ensures that standards for faculty, curricula, resources, and et cetera are met. It's based on peer review. Peers do the review. We are delighted at AACSB that we have a number of professionals from the accounting community, a practice community, who participate in our reviews in addition to the academic community who do those. So, but we're blessed by that, and they contribute a great deal to that process. But peer review is what it's all about. It does include, by the unit or area under review, extensive self-study and assessment, which is important to highlight, document alignment with standards, and then provide the base documents for review by a team. The focus really universally is around mission achievement, supported by continuous improvement. That's very much the philosophy at AACSB. Quality as evidenced through successful mission achievement, continuous improvement that's demonstrated by having effective processes, procedures, and most of all, successful outcomes that must be documented as a part of that process. AACSB recently updated its standards and approved those in 2013. And I think particularly noteworthy there is the new standards embrace as particular attributes of quality expectations that business schools and accounting programs are focusing on innovation, impact, and engagement, and we'll bring those out a little bit further along the way as part of their attributes and characteristics of quality, in which we are very excited to see the early stage reviews to produce some interesting feedback on those dimensions. This is fairly standard. Reviews, accreditation reviews, of course, are conducted periodically. In some cases, they're in 10-year cycles. At AACSB, we do ours in 5-year cycles, and 5 years comes pretty quickly. Others are 6 or 7, depending on the area being reviewed or some of the other specialized areas. Jan's going to talk a little bit about the various types of accreditation, and then I will come back and share some thoughts on the exam results.
Well, hello. I've been here before. You've heard that. I think this is at least the third and maybe even the fourth time. There are a couple ways to interpret that that I've thought of. One is you did such a good job they invited you back. That's the one I like. But another one is, surely this guy can do better than that. We're going to give him a second and even a third chance to redeem himself. So maybe that's why I'm here. I don't know. But I really appreciate, Carlos, keeping higher education at the forefront of this meeting from time to time. I think it's really important, and it's pretty neat for me to be on a program with a representative of the American Accounting Association and AACSB. I've been a member of AAA almost 50 years. Boy, it's just hard to stomach. You may have seen the word emeritus on my description earlier. And was actually president of the position that Christine holds now. I held about 15 years ago. And I've been involved with AACSB accreditation, not quite that long, but a number of years too. And both organizations are critical to the quality of business and accounting education. And that's why people like myself and others are willing to spend significant amount of time on a volunteer basis to try to make these organizations work. I'm going to digress for just a second. I have had a chance to tell some of you that I know that I moved to Nashville. And let me tell you a couple of questions I've gotten. And one of them is, did you move to Nashville because NASBA is there? The answer is no. I like NASBA. I love you guys, but that's not why I moved to Nashville. Another one is it because of the TV show, Nashville? No, definitely not, okay. The reason I moved to Nashville is pretty simple. 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren. And when I retired at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, my wife said, I'm moving to Nashville. It'd be nice if you want to come along. You decide. But so we actually have homes both places, but we are more and more in Nashville. Let me get to what I'm here to do. There are basically 3 levels of accreditation, and I'm going to move through this slide quickly because I like the next one better, which says almost the same thing. But if you start at the bottom, level 3 accreditation means that the institution is accredited, and it's a prerequisite for levels 2 and level 1, level 2 and level 1. That is, the institution is accredited. No particular programs within that institution are accredited, but the institution itself is accredited. We move up to level 2. This level, the business school has been reviewed and accredited. This is where AACSB comes into the picture. AACSB does not accredit at the level 3, but we do require schools that are accredited at levels 2 and 1 to hold the accreditation at level 3. Level 2, there's been a comprehensive review of the business school or whatever organizational structure that the university has that includes business programs. Accounting is a part of that, but it's no greater part of that than any other discipline within the business school. And then level 1 would be the most comprehensive level of accreditation, and that would be where the institution is accredited, the business school is accredited, and then finally the the accounting programs are accredited as well. This is a little bit of a sort of saying the same thing, and you can see as you move up from levels 3 to 2, 2 to 1, the extent of accreditation increases. And at level 1 is where you have a comprehensive review of all 3 levels, the accounting programs, the business school, and the institution itself. Let's talk about each one of these levels just a little bit. Level 3 accreditation focuses on the institution. There are 5 regional accrediting organizations in the United States. They're based on geography. And as you can see, the focus there is on the institution, the entire institution, its mission, governance, and administration, its effectiveness, the degrees it offers, and the last 4 bullets on the screen are all about resources. Its faculty, its library and other resources, its student support services and resources, and finally financial and physical resources. So virtually all of the schools, I think, or many of the schools at least, that you would deal with in evaluating candidates for the CPA exam would come from institutions that hold institutional accreditation. If we move up to the level 2 and we add 2 institutional accreditation, business school accreditation, this is a significant focus of AACSB. And the current standards, as Jerry said, these were put in place just a little over a year ago. They were dated 2013. Focus on 4 areas. So if a business school has been accredited by AACSB, these are the 4 areas that have been carefully evaluated. One is strategic management and innovation, and there are actually 3 standards in that area. The second area is students, faculty, and professional staff, and there are 4 standards in that area. Learning and teaching, we get into a lot of outcome measurement and things of that. Nature, 5 standards in that area. And finally, academic and professional engagement. It doesn't say it on the screen, but that's academic and professional engagement of both students and faculty. Last bullet, the reviews occur every 15, I wish it were 15. When I was a dean, I wish it were 15 years. Reviews occur every 5 years, and include all business programs, accounting, finance, management, marketing, whatever programs the business school offers. Again, accounting is included in that, but it receives no greater attention than any of the other areas that you would expect in a business school. And it's really only when we move up to level 1 that there's a more targeted focus on the accounting programs. This also occurs every 5 years and is frequently done in conjunction with business accreditation. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that in just a minute. Same areas, but they're focusing on accounting, academic programs, strategic management and innovation, accounting students, faculty, and professional staff. We look carefully at the quality of students, the sufficiency of faculty, and the professional staff. Accounting, learning, and teaching. We look at accounting curriculum content and management of the accounting curriculum. And finally, academic and professional engagement, where we look carefully at accounting students and faculty. Last Monday, I was on a review at Iowa State University, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that one simply because it's just the most recent example that I have in my mind. There were 4 of us on the campus at Iowa State, a peer review team. The 4 of us represented 4 universities. The University of Oklahoma, I did not write this down, and now I'm having one of those moments. We had on our campus representatives from the University of Arkansas, the University of Oklahoma, North Carolina State University, and myself. While I'm retired from the University of Tennessee, I'm still affiliated with that school whenever it helps them. When I do something they don't want me to know about, or they don't want anybody to know about, they delete that reference, you know how that goes. But that gives you a sense of what a peer review team looks like. There were 4 of us there. We were there about 2 days and spent considerable time evaluating the things that are on the screen right now. We had received material in advance, studied that, had some back and forth with the university. We were there 2 days. We left there actually on Tuesday afternoon and evening, and go back to our respective places and move on, and then have some reporting and so forth we do after that. So that's just a kind of an example of how a peer review works. It just so happens, I've never done this before, I'm doing another one a week from today. I've never had two that close together, and Jerry, it's not a good idea. I don't think, because it's hard for me to keep them straight. But next Monday, I'll be with another team of people. The other three will be different at University of South Carolina. So that's how that works, and we're selected to be a peer review team based on kind of the similarity of the universities that we're from and areas that we think we could be useful to the school. The visits themselves have a sort of a compliance tone. There are standards, and we want to make sure the school complies with those standards. But particularly after a school's been accredited for a long time, I think more and more of the reviews move pretty quickly through the compliance stage and to more of a consultative stage. What can a group of 4 people at other universities that have some things in common with the university being reviewed, what can we do? What can we help you with? What can we advise you on that we see that you might be able to do? And I think as schools have been accredited longer and longer, the reviews move more and more away from compliance. We do that. We do compliance, but we move more and more toward consultation and hopefully providing useful suggestions to the school being reviewed. Ultimately, a recommendation, though, comes out of that peer review team. Now, this may be the most important slide that I'm going to present to you. These are some things that a school that has level 1 accreditation, that is, has accounting accreditation, that has been evaluated about that school, that would not have been evaluated if the school did not hold accounting accreditation. And I think these are particularly important. One is certification and licensure. If a part of a school's mission is certification and licensure, and that's true for many, many accounting programs, that needs to be clear in that school's mission. And students who choose to major in accounting at a university like that need to understand the connection between the education they're getting and the certificate and licensure process. And that's particularly important with the 150-hour requirement, which is sometimes not well understood by students until somebody explains it to them. And that's really why that's in there, is to make it clear the degree that they're in and the extent to which it prepares them for certification and licensure. A school that's been accounting accredited, there's been a careful look at the impact of faculty on business and practice. It's not good enough for faculty to simply communicate with other faculty members at their own school and at other universities. And it's very important that faculty have involvement with business and practice and do work that impacts business and practice in a positive way. There's a careful evaluation of continuous improvement. What is that school doing since they were reviewed 5 years ago? What have they done that make them a better school today than they were 5 years ago? Better accounting program today than they were 5 years ago? And what's going to happen in the next 5 years? Preparation of accounting students in technology and data analytics. This is a huge emphasis in the 2013 AACSB accounting accreditation standards. I wouldn't say it wasn't there before, but it certainly didn't have the visibility that it does now, and it kind of has its own standard, and it's drawing a lot of attention, and it's directly related to the work of the Pathways Commission that has been mentioned here a couple times today. Professional qualifications, certification, and experience of faculty. If we're going to prepare accounting students for careers in professional accounting and certification and licensure, then we have to have a reasonable cross-section of our faculty who've been there and who've done those things, and that's the reason that's there. And then the professional engagement of faculty with business and practice. Those are the areas that really stand out to me for schools that have received accounting accreditation that, in my opinion, make it a worthwhile endeavor. If you look at those, 6 bullets, and I think those are ones that would really communicate with this particular group when you think about students coming out of an accredited accounting program. The next slide is no way you can read that, but all I would like for you to do is look at the column heads. And the column heads are to the left, skill specifications outline of AICPA, and on the right, AACSB standard number 9 on general skill areas. And simply trust me, I know you can't read the words. They line up really well. The skill outline specifications of the American Institute of CPAs and the standards that are expected of schools that have accounting accreditation are, with different words, they're worded slightly differently, but they line up very well. And you can see on the right, you might be able to read some of those a little bit: communication, ethics, analytical thinking, information technology, so on and so forth. So we tried to map those. In fact, this is based on some work done at St. John's University, one of our accredited schools, that went in and really carefully mapped the accreditation requirements against the AICPA skills outline, and they map very nicely together. I think with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Jerry, and we'll look forward to some discussion a little bit later.
Eventually, there we go. Thanks to James and James' group and collaboration with them and NASBA at large, we've been blessed by sharing of data and the work they're doing, supporting our schools as well with data, improved data off of the CPA exam results. We can share with you some additional data perspective today. Not surprising, you all know this very well, that, and this is an example, in 2013, there were over 94,000 candidates sitting for the CPA exam, which you all processed and managed and got qualified to sit for the exam. So it's a significant number of folks in that category. What we'd like to just show you is a little bit about the exam in terms of AACSB program graduates and their performance. Particularly the fact that AACSB graduates represented 68% of all those taking it in that year, 68%. And they represent 75% of those who passed all 4 parts. So we're very proud, I think we can say, that AACSB institutions, we'd like to say it's because of accreditation. We know better than that. But obviously we're recognizing outstanding institutions who are attracting outstanding students and having a great faculty coming together, giving them a great education, qualify them then to go on to do well in preparation for their careers in accounting, passing the exam and moving forward. So as you look there across the bottom, you see the bottom gray, the darkest gray, is the students finishing the exam who came from AACSB accounting accredited, level 1 accreditation institutions. The green are those who came from AACSB accredited business schools not having accounting accreditation. And then the remainder will be other students who qualified for the exam, which are significant. But you see an ever-increasing improvement there on exam scores and performance or passing rates there across that time. Of course, both combined accounting and business graduates from AACSB schools account for a significant part of those who are successful and particularly significant for overall test takers. This is a little different look at it. This is first-time exam pass rates. The top line are graduates of AACSB accredited level 1 accounting accredited institutions. And you can see since 2006 to 2013 where that group has performed relative to others. The middle line is those who graduate from AACSB accredited business schools without accounting accreditation. And the bottom line is all others. So obviously we're very proud of the success of our graduates of our AACSB accredited accounting programs as they perform very well on the CPA exam over time and have consistently done so. And again, thanks to James and his colleagues for being able to ferret out this information and share it with us. We're very proud of that and pleased to see those results. But they do give you a great deal of confidence that these students are graduating well prepared, having the adequate background. And that's our point here. We're very pleased, I think, to say that they have excellent accounting experiences as well as general business as necessary and the gen ed component coming from major institutions. This is somewhat generally related, but I think important, is this is kind of the board exam requirements showing, and these slides are available to you, of course. 32 boards allow fewer than 150 hours to sit. 13 required 150 hours within a short time after the application, and 9 boards currently have a strict 150-hour requirement to sit. We accredit programs that offer all the way through the master's. We accredit programs that only offer undergraduate degrees who do not meet, themselves require 150 hours in their educational experience. But the point being is these programs are of high quality with great students and a solid faculty, and they're located, of course, throughout the United States and beyond. We have accredited accounting programs, of course, in 8 countries now in the world. Based on our latest research, and I think this is reasonably correct, that in the state and territory boards that recognize the level 1 and 2 forms, the model rules that Jan shared with you earlier that are in the model rules from NASBA, this is the group that currently officially recognize that, those model rules and the levels of accreditation as they review candidates. And if you read the actual model rules, talk about level 1 requiring the least amount of scrutiny, level 2, you have to look at the, you get confirmation of the business side, look at the accounting, and level 3, you've got to look at almost at everything, is I think some tenet of the language that's there. Turn it back over to Jan to wrap it up here, and then we hope we can get some questions from you all and comments and look forward to that.
Really don't have a lot to add other than just to sort of summarize what we've said. The highest level would be level 1, and that means that the institution is accredited, the business school is accredited, and the accounting programs are accredited. 3 different processes, they're related to each other, but they're essentially three reviews have occurred. Level 2 accreditation, the top one of those has not occurred. The separate accounting accreditation has not, but the institution has been accredited as well as the business programs have been accredited. And level 3, only the institution has been accredited. The business school or business programs and accounting programs have not been separately accredited to those institutions. As you can see, levels 1 and 2, the AACSB accredited programs provide about 65% of CPA exam candidates. And we feel like accreditation, particularly at level 1, but level 1 and 2 has potential for reducing administrative review of such candidates by state boards of accountancy. And you see that as these levels of accreditation are built into the laws and regulations of some states. So I think with that, we're going to open up. Carlos, do you want to administer this? And if you have a question for specific one of us, you might tell us which one it is.
Right. We'll get them to come to the microphone. Let me provide a couple points. Jerry referred to the number of states where you can sit for the exam without the 150. All jurisdictions require the 150 for licensure. Everybody needs to know that, all right? Require the 150 for licensure. So we are very consistent on the number of credit hours, minimum number of credit hours to sit for the exam, to enter the profession. 2, there was reference to the educational requirements, and those educational requirements are in the rules to the UAA. They're not in the UAA, they're in the rules to the UAA, so if you want to look at those, that's where you need to go look. Christine, not exactly sure what you're doing in Utah to create success, but if you go back and look at the 2013 results of the exam, Utah has the highest passing rate. Right, okay? Don't have the most candidates, but they got the highest passing rate.
Carlos, I was on their accreditation review team a few years ago, and I'm sure that's why.
Exactly.
I'm sure that's why they're being so successful.
Yeah. Then, Jan referred to how long he's been a member of each organization, et cetera. The 2 of us initially started on the AICPA 150-hour committee to get that in place, and that's why I got white hair, and he turned out okay. And Jerry and I have been talking about, we understand the level of accreditation, and with all these different types of degrees we're going to get, it's very important for us to be able to say to the public that we understand the accreditation process from which we get these candidates, or we get the students who become applicants who become candidates. So that's, and James Suh and his group, that the NIES group, they can take one section of that exam and tear it apart, and they can tell Oklahoma State University, all right? They can tell Oklahoma State University, this is where, this section of auditing, your students aren't doing that well. So they can really break that, they can slice and dice that data, they can break it down, and their universities are making changes within the curriculum based on the success rate of the various sections of the exam, because you break that down. And when these guys refer to the lowest level of accreditation, the recognized accreditation, they said, and I believe you said there are 5, and that is the regional accrediting association. Like I grew up in Oklahoma with the North Central Accrediting Association, and go to Texas, it's the Southern Regional Accrediting Association. And if you're the auditor of one of those institutions, they have to have their audited financial statements submitted by a certain day, because that affects the accrediting process. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more to it. And then you have other accrediting associations, but that's what you need to be aware of as state board members, and the executive directors are going to have to become much more aware of it if we get these new types of learning and teaching methods. With that, we'll take questions.
Rick Reisig from Montana, and it might be a question for Jerry, but anyone I'm sure could answer or address the question. At least in our area, we have a big difficult time to recruit accounting faculty, and the institutions that many of us are involved in know that there's that relationship between research and class time and so on. Is the AACSB, do they ever look at accreditation standards and rules and how to manage that issue with institutions where they can be limited in how many adjunct professors they might be able to accept because it could affect accreditation? I mean, is there any thought given or?
Yes, the current standards as approved in 2013, and even the prior standards, it incorporated and recognized that, and I think these standards much more, even more overtly, that kind of starting from this premise, a very strong business school and a very strong accounting program is one that blends a strong practice and theory perspective. And one aspect of recognizing that is the standards or the guidelines regarding the composition of a faculty recognize the important role of faculty who, yes, come from an academic background, but also faculty that come from a professional or practice background, and the opportunity to deploy a blend of faculty from those backgrounds is really quite significant, particularly for practice-oriented faculty, as we would call it. In Pathways has been spending a good bit of time on that as well. So the standards do not say that an accredited accounting program must have 100% of its faculty with Ph.D.s. That's not the case. There's a substantial room for deployment of qualified faculty based on professional experience, significant in duration, level of responsibility, et cetera, and use those individuals effectively, and in many cases they do great work. Most cases do great work. So the standards are, I think, sufficiently flexible. There are some minimum expectations about deploying faculty with backgrounds and with scholarly backgrounds, doctorates, and research capabilities. But there's a good bit of leeway there to work with, and we recognize, in particularly accounting is one area where there's a severe supply issue with individuals with doctoral degrees in the field, and so but the standards weren't adjusted for that. I mean, the same applies to a finance area or a management marketing as well, or business school as a whole. But there is a strong recognition of the importance of deploying some professionally oriented faculty, and the number of those. Of course, the size of a given program, the degrees of freedom are either greater or limited. If you got 100 faculty, there's obviously room for a good number. If you've got 20 faculty, that number is a little more constrained in terms of using some percentages that guide that. But there is room for that, strongly importantly so. We believe that's the right thing to do, and that solely an academic faculty, unless the mission of that program is solely focused on, let's say, academic research, basic research, that there is an appropriate deployment of both, and that's very important for successful professional programs.
Aren't there 4 levels of recognition of various types of faculty?
Yeah, there are 4 types,
Okay,
and they're built on the concept of engagement. There's some faculty who are to be recognized, we call them scholarly academics, that typically are engaged in their discipline academically, doing a lot of research and publication as well as teaching, and their currency and relevancy comes from. And that's the important part of this is AACSB accreditation doesn't simply say once you've got your degree, a Ph.D., that you're set for life. I got a Ph.D. in 1977. If I want to teach today, it is useless as far as AACSB goes. I'm proud of it, but it's content-wise obviously very different. So faculty are expected to remain current and relevant and up to date through engagement with their discipline academically and or professionally. So there's a room for faculty who are highly engaged with the profession. We call them practice academics. And then there are also provisions for instructional practitioners. These are the individuals who come from practice and are hired for their experience, full or part-time. And then even some of those like Scott Showalter, who is at NC State, we often use as our poster child for the example. Scott's become quite a successful scholar coming out of practice and being at NC State and being a very successful member of the academy, but he doesn't have a PhD. So there's quite a bit of flexibility in the faculty
That's
standards.
what I wanted them to know. There is flexibility. Move over here, and then Ruben, I'll come back to you.
I'm Ed Jolliker from Washington State. There's been a concern raised in the profession that the good news is, I guess there's a lot more students in the pipeline and graduating from accounting schools. But the bad news is, I think that there's either a level number or even a lessening number of those students taking the CPA exam. And this is for Christine. Has AAA looked into that issue and have any thoughts about what the causes might be and maybe solutions?
Actually, that is not an issue.
Is that Mike live?
Oh, sorry, is it Mike live? Is it now? That is not an issue that we have looked at specifically. You know, we are seeing at my university an increase in the number of students that are interested in Master's of Accounting programs. It's been one of the fastest growing programs that we have amongst all of our master's programs. But it's not clear that all of those students necessarily want to go into public accounting. So there are other pathways that they might pursue. I don't know if anybody else wants to add something
I think traditional college-age students in the United States in certain demographic groups is a declining population. That's the demographic just show that. I mean, it's just if 18 to 22-year-old, essentially white Caucasians are declining at a very fast rate. Obviously, there are growing populations in that age group of Hispanic students, opportunity there. But the demographics are changing, so the competition for students is very keen. There's no question about that. Accounting has grown in enrollment and at least held its own through a very difficult financial time for higher education institutions. It's what we see. Specialized master's degrees are very popular. MBA is somewhat flat or down. So that gives you some perspective of what's going on. I think competing for the talent in the public accounting sector is tough and highly competitive, obviously, and one that's I don't know if we have an answer to it, but the interest in accounting is high.
But we definitely, we do know that we have the trend is upward. Number of people going into the schools of accounting. Then we also know that we have more women studying accounting than we do men, but we know that more men take the exam than women do. And the AICPA has a project that's ongoing that we're very interested in as to why is this occurring. And they are obviously, as an organization, are very interested in that answer, and they've got a research project to pursue that specific answer. The number of candidates in the last several years has flatlined. And so we're looking at that to try to determine why have we flatlined at this point. Now, the last time we changed the exam, we had a huge spike. And so when the exam changes again in 2017, you can expect another huge spike in 2016.
Yeah.
Because those people want to take the exam before it changes. Now I'm going to move to Ruben, and then Barton, I'll come back to you.
So two quick questions. My name is Ruben Davila. I'm from California and University of Southern California. There is a shortage of accounting professors. I think that has to do with what Rick just brought up. And this is a great population potentially to draw from professionals that could teach in a classroom. I know we actively recruit for that. So the first question has to do with, I know that there's professional qualifications. So it might be nice for some people to hear what those are so they might consider what that would be and if they're eligible for that. So that's one. The other one, Christine, is my concern. The good news with MOOCs is their availability and the low cost, but my concern obviously is quality. You've alluded to some of those. The things that I've seen deal with content. You had the slide up that dealt with skills, which has to do with analytical skills, research, understanding, communication skills. So I'm wondering, from an assessment standpoint, how do you go beyond technical to the skill set? So I'll sit down and listen to your answers.
Yeah, let me take a shot at your first question that had to do with professional qualifications. To a large extent, I think that's up to the school. Generally, I think there's the expectation of pretty sustained professional experience. I would hesitate to put a number of years on it, but not jumping kind of from one job to another, but reaching a certain level of responsibility within an organization, and then at some point deciding to move into higher education, and then the expectation is that person will sustain that experience through a variety of activities after he or she becomes a faculty member. It's just like the Ph.D. doesn't guarantee you a lifetime, neither does experience. Once you get on a faculty, then you have responsibility for maintaining a level of professional engagement that sort of justifies, your being current in your field and so forth. But there's a lot of latitude on that with schools depending on kind of what they expect of professionally qualified faculty members. The second question, I'm sorry, I was thinking about the first one and I didn't get a good grasp on it. Either of you?
I can actually jump in on the
I
second
think it was directed to Christine.
question. Critical thinking skills, communication skills, those sort of softer but very, very important analytical skills are ones that are going to be difficult with the technology as it currently is to impart those types of skills in a MOOC or an online format. And so that's one of the reasons why, if a student came to us and said, we want to get our MOOC class that we've taken for credit to be transfer credit for our university, we would be looking, as we do for any class that they might bring forward, at the materials that were used to determine whether or not it was not just the content, but also the skills that students need to acquire through having taken that course, whether the materials would allow them to acquire those skills. Now, if we came to the conclusion that they didn't, then of course we have the right and the option not to provide transfer credit for that particular class. The other thing is that we do limit the number of credits that they can transfer in so that we have other opportunities to help the student develop those softer skills and also those analytical skills that they need to be successful. And then I guess the last thing I would say is just that the technology is changing very fast. So even though there may be aspects that online education currently doesn't do a particularly good job at, that is changing. And there's a lot of effort out there right now to look at how do students learn, how do they retain information, how do we teach them these critical thinking skills and analytical skills, and how can we package that in an online format that some would argue down the path might be even more effective than what we can do in the classroom. I don't know if we're ever going to get there, but certainly part of our job as this is happening is to go through and make those careful assessments to ensure that when students graduate from our university, that they are well prepared to be successful in their career.
Yeah, the book on Who Moved My Cheese certainly applies to where we are today with higher education. You need to read that for a refresher. It's a good airplane book. It won't take you long to read at all. Barton?
Barton Baldwin, North Carolina. Jan, this is to you. And I was just curious, when a school fails accreditation through your organization, how long do they have that they can rectify that and reapply to go through the accreditation process again? And another part of that is, on these MOOCs, are y'all doing any kind of accreditation work on that as well?
I think that's probably better answered by Jerry. Before I turn this over to him, let me point out, I'm a volunteer with AACSB. Jerry gets paid by that organization. And really, I'm serious, that is I think that's a question he probably is, and has recently retired as the Vice President for Accreditation of AACSB. That is a perfect question for him to answer.
If a school enters a process, applies, and there's the process allows up to a 7-year process to be successful in accreditation. If it in that process hits difficult times or cannot meet the standards, very obviously, they're advised to withdraw voluntarily, and if they do, then they can come back anywhere from a 1 to 3 year period to reapply, and of course they're told what the issues are, what needs to be done to address it, and then return to the process when those matters have been addressed. If the school does not voluntarily do that, there's a process for, of course, counseling them out of the process, removing them, and in that case, the period to come back can be generally 5 years. Generally, that's obviously a very severe situation, and that's the way that happens. The process is designed for schools to move really at their own pace, but the maximum period is 7 years. So there are thresholds and milestones that have to be met. So a decent number that will enter will not make it, but often will go, remove themselves, take care of those issues, come back later and be quite successful.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the goal of AACSB is to kind of bat 1,000. And if it's better for a school to slow down, maybe even get completely out of the process for a little while and then come back in later, that's better than going too far, failing in the process. It's just, they don't want that to happen. So they work really closely with schools with the goal of being virtually 100% successful of those that get deep into the process.
Yeah, there's a lot of help out there for schools who are interested, and the standards they're available, they're online, the process is articulated. So working and getting ready and being really ready is the ideal, and come from enter at a position of strength, not with a lot of work yet to be done.
Jerry, I'm an institution, I'm interested in becoming an AACSB school. Just give me an idea of the time that it will take to get hire the consultant, do all the research, make application, and be accepted.
Well, it's up to 7 years. I mean, you got to be a member of AACSB. That's a separate status than accreditation.
But
That's
that's the
pretty
initial
easy
process.
and then you can enter the process, submit an application. Once that application is accepted, you've got 7 years with various miles, up to 7 years. Most schools do not take that. Average is about 36 to 44 months to take through the process. That is assuming that they have worked really hard to get ready and come from a position of strength. If that isn't done, then 7 years may well be taken and possibly not even successful.
And it's also not an inexpensive process.
No, I think the fees are not outrageous. I think more importantly, the investments that have to be made to come into alignment with the standards is where the material costs lie. If you've got to add 3 faculty members and infrastructure, and your computing environment's not very good, and et cetera, then it could be quite costly.
Exactly. You need to find an alum who will help you. Yeah, right? I think
yeah, that would help.
Christine's head
Yeah,
going up and
yeah,
down. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Who will help you fund the process. I call that a sugar daddy. No question.
Carlos,
Now then, I want to come back to
Okay.
Rich,
okay.
and then Ray, I'll get to you. I want to come back to Rick Reisig's question, and Jan has a response.
Yeah,
to that.
it just takes me a little while to get my thoughts together. I think about the first question, or one of the early questions that was asked was essentially how could we have increased numbers of students studying accounting but reduced numbers of students taking CPA exam or something like that. Some faculties, and a couple that I'm aware of, especially aware of, have done some really interesting things with undergraduate accounting programs and matched up an undergraduate accounting major with another field. And one person I was on a peer review team with very recently told me that their undergraduate students graduating from their undergraduate accounting program that had these unique characteristics had higher starting salaries than their Master of Accountancy students. So basically what that's saying is if a school puts out a really good student out of a really good undergraduate program, they may never be a CPA. They may choose to use accounting as an entree into a career in accounting that has an accounting dimension to it, but not ever be a CPA. And I think that may account for some of those.
Okay. Ray, our last question.
Yeah, quick question. Jerry, you gave some very good data on the level 1, level 2, and level 3 accreditation.
Yeah.
That group of level 3 accreditation is still a very important group in terms of how it fills the pipeline, and there's still a material number of candidates coming through level 3 accreditation. Can the panel give us your insights on how state boards might look at level 3 accreditation schools, how to evaluate that accreditation, the variance in that accreditation, and your thoughts about level 3 accreditation?
Ooh, that's a sensitive spot. Level 3 is the institutional accreditation, SACS, Higher Learning Commission of North Central, Western, New England, Mid-Atlantic, and so on. A lot of schools are there. Some of those include the for-profit sector, by the way, are in those sets. I think some of the scorecard that's coming out can be helpful. I know that the boards are limited in staff time and so on, but understanding the institution's background, where they stand, and in terms of graduation rates and things of that nature can tell you something about the quality. More and more you're going to see learning outcomes actually being produced. In other words, how well the students are doing on what's expected to be learned, articulated by the school. Some of that's going to be going public eventually. It's not completely there yet, so that may provide some helpful information. It's that landscape of that set that goes beyond what we know in AACSB is very complex, ranges in size, of course, very small schools to very large ones, and varying degrees of quality.
The short answer is I'll take you off the hook.
It is tough.
The boards have got to do their own.
I think so.
The board's got to do their. The board's got to do its own research.
One last thing, I think I really, to a certain extent, sympathize with the work, because I think, as Christine talked about MOOCs, you're soon probably going to see degrees. Yes, you're going to see degrees presented to you that are basically based on life experience, at least a big chunk of it. And upcoming are degrees based on competency-based education, which has nothing to do with credit hours typically. You won't see credit hours in a transcript. You'll see competencies in a transcript. Now, those, I think, if they're done by legitimate institutions, Wisconsin's in that space now, Michigan's giving some consideration to it, I think. It hasn't gotten into the business side yet, but it's probably coming. where it's based not on sitting in a classroom for 15 weeks for 3 hours and all that stuff a week. It's based on demonstration of competency. If they're done well, the competencies are validated, and that's the key.
Yeah.
But of course, unfortunately, as there is in our business, like in many other businesses, there are a lot of questionable players in that business, and it'll be tough to. I mean, we'll have to be careful and cautious about that.
Yeah.
But-
Jan, you have one last comment? and
Yeah,
we'll wind
I
it
don't
up.
want to leave the impression that we think schools that have only level 3 accreditation
no.
are necessarily bad schools. I mean, I've got an undergraduate degree from one of them.
As do
And,
I.
but you simply do not have the assurance that the accreditation gives you as far as the business content, which level 2 gives you, or the accounting content, which level 1 gives you. So you just have to analyze that more carefully. Does the candidate have what you expect them to have in terms of business and accounting, which the accreditation gives you if the school has level 2 or level 1 accreditation. The accreditation doesn't help you with that if it's a level 3 accreditation.
I realize